In the quiet hush of an early Victorian morning, the soft chime of a distant church bell broke through the mist that hung over London's narrow streets. Within the gentle pale light of dawn, the lives of women were already stirring, silent figures moving beneath layers of cotton nightgowns and corsets waiting to be laced. It was a world where beauty was both a discipline and a declaration of one's place in society. Every woman, whether born into privilege or striving beneath its weight, carried with her an unspoken rule. Her appearance reflected her virtue, her orderliness, her moral worth. In those days, physical care was not about indulgence, it was duty. Before breakfast, even before prayer, many women began what they called their toilet, a ritual of cleansing and grooming that could last hours. In small bedrooms filled with floral wallpaper and the scent of lavender water, porcelain basins were filled with water fetched by hand, often cold. Unless one had the luxury of servants to heat it, the water was poured carefully, rippling with the faint scent of rose or vinegar. Depending on what was available, the washing itself was not as simple as one might imagine. Victorian women were taught that too much washing could weaken the body, while too little was the mark of neglect. So they bathed in sections the face, the neck, the arms, each cleaned gently with a soft cloth or sponge, careful to avoid what they believed were harmful extremes of temperature. Their soap was handmade, often from tallow or olive oil, mixed with herbs like chamomile, mint, or milk cream. For wealthier women, imported Castile soap or perfumed bars from France were treasures kept wrapped in silk paper. After washing, the skin was dabbed, not rubbed, to preserve its softness. Then came the lotions, simple mixtures of almond oil, beeswax, and sometimes a few drops of lemon juice, believed to brighten the complexion. But beyond mere cleanliness, these routines carried an air of moral symbolism. Purity of skin was equated with purity of spirit. To appear healthy, calm, and composed was to display inner virtue. Hair, too, was a matter of daily labor and care. Victorian hair was long, heavy, and sacred in a way. It was brushed, always brushed 100 strokes each morning and night, not for vanity, but for discipline. Mothers taught daughters to brush until every strand shone in the candlelight. The brush itself was a cherished object, its handle carved from ivory or wood, its bristles made from wild boar hair. Women oiled their hair with homemade tonics. Castor oil, rosemary, and even rum were common ingredients. For women of means, a lady's maid might attend to this, heating a small iron to curl the ends slightly or to tame flyaways. But for most, it was an act of patience, a private ritual before mirrors clouded with age. Perfume, contrary to modern belief, was not worn openly. It was subtle, modest, hidden beneath layers of fabric, never to overwhelm. A handkerchief might carry a faint trace of violet water or lavender sachet. The scent was more a whisper than a statement, meant to please quietly rather than announce presence. A woman's natural fragrance, the faint scent of soap and linen, was considered the highest form of refinement. Under the heavy dresses and corsets, the body was carefully maintained. Exercise was not seen as modern women view it today. Rather, it was framed with impropriety. Walking in gardens or along shaded promenades was encouraged not for muscle, but for grace. Women practiced poise, balance, the controlled gestures of the body, a straight back, a graceful turn of the head, a calm expression. These were the true markers of physical care. The body was trained to speak of restraint and composure. Even laughter was moderated, for too much animation betrayed a lack of breeding. There was also a quiet obsession with compaction. Pale skin was the ideal proof of gentility. A life untouched by manual labor or the harshness of the sun. Women shielded their faces with parasols, veils, and wide-brimmed hats. They used concoctions made from rice powder or zinc oxide to whiten their faces, unaware that some of these powders contained lead. A rosy tint on the cheeks could be achieved with crushed strawberries or a dab of vinegar mixed with carmine, but it was always subtle. Any sign of overt makeup was scandalous, associated with actresses or women of questionable repute. The goal was always to appear as though nature herself had favored them with effortless beauty, though the effort was anything but small. Inside their dressing rooms, mirrors captured not just faces, but whole worlds of self-discipline. There were little bottles, combs, pins, ribbons, and scissors laid neatly in rows. Women often sewed small linen bags filled with herbs, lavender, rosemary, dried rose petals to place within their drawers or petticoats. These scents clung faintly to their garments, comforting and private. The home itself carried these aromas. Rooms smelled faintly of starch, soap, and flowers. To keep one's surroundings clean and fragrant was also part of self-care, for cleanliness of space reflected cleanliness of character. Those who could afford it visited bathhouses, though public bathing remained a cautious affair. For wealthier households, copper tubs were brought to the bedroom. A maid would pour steaming water, often mixed with oatmeal or milk, which was believed to soften the skin. Some even added a few drops of ammonia for brightness. After bathing, a woman might wrap herself in soft linens and sit by the fire, reading letters or brushing her hair again, letting it fall loosely for a few quiet moments before it was pinned up again into the day's style braids, buns, or coiled twists adorned with modest pins. Beyond hygiene, the Victorians practiced self-care through what they called regimen. They believed in order, rising at the same hour each day, eating with restraint, and retiring early. Too much sleep was laziness, too little, vanity. Diet, too, was a matter of moral judgment. Women ate simply porridge, bread, tea, fruit, avoiding anything that might excite the senses too much. It was thought that moderation preserved both the figure and the mind. Doctors of the time even prescribed cold water rubs and brisk air to strengthen the nerves. To be delicate was fashionable, but to be weak was not. So women cultivated a controlled fragility, a look of soft grace paired with quiet endurance. Even illness had its rituals. When a lady fell faint, smelling salts were kept nearby, small silver vials filled with ammonia crystals. A quick spark to revive her. It was both medical and theatrical, a reminder of the fragile line between wellness and weariness. For headaches, women applied vinegar-soaked cloths to the temples. For blemishes, they mixed honey with milk. For tired eyes, they placed cool cucumber slices long before that became a modern trick. Each act of care was deliberate, performed with an air of calm, the same way they stitched embroidery or wrote letters in delicate script. And yet, beneath the calm surface of these routines lay a quiet rebellion. Some women, especially in the later Victorian years, began questioning the endless confinement of corsets and the weight of expectations tied to physical appearance. They read about health reformers who spoke of fresh air, open movement, and sunlight. A few dared to bathe daily, shocking their elders. Others joined walking clubs, lifting their skirts slightly above the ankle to step freely. It was subtle, but it was change. The idea that a woman's body was her own something to nurture, not just for beauty, but for vitality, began to stir quietly in parlors and gardens. Still, for most, the day began and ended with discipline. At night, after long hours of social calls or household duties, the evening toilet would begin again, the corset unlaced, the hair brushed once more, the hands massaged with cold cream. Some wrote in their diaries by candlelight, recording not grand events, but small details, how their skin felt after a bath, or how their new lavender soap compared to the old one. These intimate notations, now yellowed with time, reveal a generation that lived within rules yet found gentleness within them. There was a strange poetry in it all, a basin gleaming under lamplight, the comb laid across a folded towel, the quiet sigh of fabric as it was set aside for the night. Victorian women cared for their bodies as one might tend a delicate garden, patiently, reverently, with the awareness that every touch, every drop of oil or brushstroke carried meaning. Their care was not about glamour. It was about order, serenity, and the quiet pride of maintaining dignity in a world that demanded perfection. And in those long, dim hours before dawn, when the city outside was still shrouded in fog, a woman's reflection in her mirror was perhaps the truest version of herself, tired, graceful, human. Her rituals, though strict, were a form of survival. Beneath the layers of lace and etiquette, each act of care whispered a truth too often forgotten, that intending to the body, they preserved not just beauty, but the fragile peace of the soul. Evening fell gently upon the city, drawing long golden lines across the windows of Victorian homes, where behind closed curtains women continued their quiet rituals of care. The day's dust and tension would soon be washed away, replaced by the calm rhythm of brushes, creams, and whispered thoughts. The streets outside still echoed with carriage wheels and the distant calls of vendors. But within those private rooms, time seemed to slow. It was the hour of reflection, when the light dimmed just enough to make the mirrors seem kinder, and the air carried the faint scent of soap, linen, and candle wax. For a Victorian woman, the evening toilet was an act of both restoration and performance. She prepared herself not for others now, but for rest, for solitude, for the preservation of youth and composure. Servants might assist in the grander homes, carrying pitchers of hot water, laying out clean chemises, and folding the heavy garments of the day. The corset, that rigid symbol of discipline, was unfastened first. Its unlacing was slow, deliberate, a small act of release. Each breath came easier as the whalebone loosened its grip. Beneath the corset, the soft cotton chemise clung to the skin, slightly damp from the day's wear. Removing it felt like shedding a layer of armor. Some women preferred to bathe fully at this hour. The copper tub would be placed before the fire, steam rising gently in the flickering light. The bath was never hurried. A handful of oatmeal might be stirred into the water for softness, or milk and honey for moisture. Those who could afford luxury used floral infusions, violet petals, jasmine, even orange blossom. As they washed, they moved slowly, mindful not to wet the hair unless it was the appointed day for it. Hair washing was a grand affair, done perhaps once a week, using homemade concoctions of egg yolk, gin, or soapwort. The rinse was followed by hours of drying beside the hearth. But even those who did not bathe fully practiced their nightly ablutions with devotion. A bowl of warm water, a small sponge, and a bar of soap were enough. They cleaned the face, neck, and hands areas most visible and most judged. A lady's hands were her signature, soft, white, and free of calluses. To keep them so, she rubbed them with glycerin or almond oil before bed, slipping on thin cotton gloves to seal in the moisture overnight. The skin of the face was treated with cold cream, that timeless mixture of beeswax, rose water, and oil, massaged in with upward strokes. In the candlelight, this ritual took on a rhythm, almost meditative. Each gesture repeated night after night, each scent familiar. It was in these moments that thoughts wandered to letters unwritten, to loves long gone, to dreams that could never be spoken aloud. Victorian women were masters of quiet endurance, and in these nightly ceremonies they found the only space that truly belonged to them. For the hair, the routine continued. The long locks were released from pins and combs, falling freely across the shoulders. The sound of hair brushing filled the room, a slow, deliberate stroke from crown to tip, counted carefully 100 times. The brush drew out the day's fatigue, the oil from scalp to ends, the faint crackle of static in the dry air. Some whispered small prayers as they brushed, believing that beauty, like virtue, could be tended through devotion. Others simply lost themselves in thought, watching the strands shimmer in the mirror's dim reflection. Perfumed oils might be applied afterward, sparingly. A drop of rosemary to the scalp, a trace of lavender at the temples to ease sleep. The hair was then braided loosely to prevent tangling, tied with a ribbon or silk cord. These braids were not decorative, but practical, keeping the hair smooth for the morning. When the toilet was complete, a fresh nightgown awaited, white, flowing, and modest. The fabric was soft from repeated washing, the lace edges slightly worn. Some women wrapped shawls about their shoulders to guard against the chill, then sat by the window to gaze out at the fog-covered streets. It was in this half-light that reflection deepened. The body, now freed from its restraints, seemed lighter. The act of care had quieted the mind. Letters often followed. Many women wrote before bed, their handwriting careful and neat, filling pages with observations of daily life. They described their health, their routines, the success of a new skin cream, or the pleasant scent of their new soap. In their words, one can feel the pulse of a society that prized restraint, but longed for intimacy. The smallest detail, a hint of blush, a strand of hair, could be a window into deeper emotion. These letters, now preserved in faded ink, speak of how self-care became a language of feeling when open emotion was forbidden. Those with children used the evening to teach daughters these same rituals. A mother would guide her child's hand as she brushed her hair, teaching the importance of grace in every motion. Never hurry, she might whisper. The body responds to patience. It was not merely grooming, it was education, passing down the silent codes of womanhood. Daughters learned that appearance was not just surface, it was discipline, respectability, survival. Not all, however, followed these customs willingly. In the growing hum of the later 19th century, some began to question the endless maintenance of modesty and decorum. The rational dress movement had already taken root among progressive thinkers, calling for looser garments and natural health. These women, often seen as rebellious, championed the freedom to breathe deeply, to move unbound by corsets, to bathe daily without moral alarm. They spoke of hygiene as liberation rather than duty. But change came slowly, rippling through drawing rooms and tea circles, whispered between sisters rather than declared aloud. Still, even those quietly defiant women carried with them the residue of the old world. They might forgo the corset, but they still brushed their hair 100 strokes. They might embrace sunlight, but they still powdered their faces lightly to soften its mark. Old habits lingered like perfume on the hem of a dress dot in smaller towns and rural areas, where life moved at a slower rhythm. The rituals were simpler, but no less meaningful. A woman might wash at the kitchen basin by candlelight, the same place where she scrubbed dishes earlier. Her soap was homemade, her towel rough, but her care was no less tender. She would sit before a small cracked mirror, oiling her hair with fingers instead of brushes, and hum softly to herself. These moments of solitude, brief, fragile, were perhaps her only luxury. The night deepened. Across London, gas lamps flickered and the hum of the city quieted. In countless rooms, women prepared for bed with the same deliberate rhythm, each believing that their efforts preserved not only beauty, but dignity. For some, it was habit. For others, a small act of control in a world that offered little of it. When finally the last candle was snuffed out, the darkness was not complete. The moonlight slid softly through curtains, tracing silver lines across pale faces resting on linen pillows. The faint scent of lavender lingered in the air, and from somewhere in the distance came the sound of a clock striking midnight. The city slept, and with it, the women who carried its silent grace. But within those moments between waking and sleep, many dreamed not of grandeur but of ease. They imagined a world where care could be simple, where beauty did not demand endurance, where the body was not a burden but a home. Yet when morning came, the ritual would begin again, the washing, the brushing, the restraint, each act repeating, as steady as the ticking of time itself. The Victorian woman's body was both sanctuary and battleground, her care both devotion and disguise. And though she could not have known it, the tenderness she practiced each night, the patience, the rhythm, the quiet self-preservation was the seed of something modern, a truth that would take generations to bloom. That self-care is not vanity, but survival. Morning light crept through the lace curtains, scattering fragile patterns across polished wooden floors. The city was already stirring, carriages clattering over cobblestones, merchants calling their wares, the faint scent of bread and smoke mingling in the air. But inside the quiet rooms of Victorian homes, the day began in ritualistic devotion. For the women who inhabited these spaces, physical care was not a choice. It was the unspoken law of propriety, the invisible chain linking beauty, morality, and social standing. Breakfast often came after the first stage of toilet, a simple affair, tea steeped in delicate china cups, toast buttered sparingly, occasionally a small portion of fruit or porridge. Meals were measured to maintain both figure and disposition. Indulgence was frowned upon, associated with weakness of character. And while eating, hands were kept immaculate, fingers lightly touching the porcelain, wrists gracefully elevated, as though even the motion of consuming food could betray one's self-discipline. After breakfast, the main toilet resumed. This was the time for finer grooming, a preparation not just for the day, but for society itself. The hair, often still slightly damp from the evening wash or carefully oiled and braided, was arranged according to fashion and propriety. Buns, twists, and coils required pins of silver or steel, sometimes adorned with tiny combs or ribbons, yet always restrained and modest. Any display deemed excessive could invite gossip, which in the rigid social hierarchies of Victorian society was tantamount to a quiet shame. The skin, too, received careful attention. Gold cream was applied in gentle upward strokes, smoothing the features, preserving the pallor that signified refinement. The eyes were attended with simple care, a wash with cool water, perhaps a cloth lightly dabbed with rose water to reduce puffiness. The lips might receive a faint touch of beetroot or carmine to restore natural color, always subtle, never theatrical. Fingernails and toenails were cleaned meticulously. A speck of dirt or a ragged edge could be noticed, for hands and feet were among the most revealing indicators of a woman's domestic diligence. Underneath the layers of skirts, petticoats, and corsets, women were guided by strict regimes. Physical exercise was indirect but intentional. Walking along the garden paths, turning at corners with measured grace, even standing for extended periods to tend flowers or write letters all contributed to posture, endurance, and poise. While the corset restricted, it also instructed. Back straight, chest elevated, shoulders gentle yet controlled. The body became a disciplined instrument, trained to reflect restraint, virtue, and elegance. Some women had access to more sophisticated forms of care. Wealthier households might employ a lady's maid whose role extended beyond assistance. The maid would prepare baths infused with herbs, scrub and oil the hair, mix lotions for skin, and ensure that every layer of linen was fresh and fragrant. These attendants learned the subtleties of perfumes, powders, and hair tonics, their skill essential to the household's standard of presentation. Yet, even with assistance, the woman remained vigilant, for the true responsibility of beauty and composure could never be delegated entirely. Clothing itself was an extension of self-care. Fabrics were starched and pressed, seams perfectly aligned, hems falling in precise symmetry. Corsets were laced carefully, often in tandem with subtle shifts of posture to reduce discomfort. Each garment served both function and symbolism. The bodice held the chest in rigid posture. The petticoats shaped the leg's outline, and gloves concealed what society deemed unrefined. The act of dressing, slow and meticulous, was as much a meditation as a presentation. Each fold of fabric, each ribbon tied, spoke of a woman's understanding of her role and her ability to navigate it gracefully. Dietary habits reinforced physical care. Meals were consumed with mindfulness. Fruits were sliced, bread toasted to perfection, tea sipped with precision. Many women avoided rich sauces, spices, or heavy meats, favoring light, simple nourishment believed to maintain clarity of mind and elegance of figure. Hydration came from water, milk, and occasionally wine in small, measured amounts. Some believed in tonic herbs to strengthen the body, chamomile for calm, peppermint for digestion, rose for compaction. The intersection of diet and health reflected the Victorian fascination with balanced moderation in all things, a concept that governed both body and social conduct. Even social interactions were framed by care. When a visitor arrived, The hair was freshly brushed, skin subtly perfumed, hands gloved but soft, posture impeccable, conversation was measured, laughter controlled, gestures deliberate. The body's presentation, from the tilt of the head to the placement of a foot, spoke volumes about breeding, education, and refinement. An unsteady step or a slip of composure could lead to speculation, subtle censure, or whispered gossip in drawing rooms. Each movement was choreographed, almost ritualistic, reflecting the broader principle that the external presentation of a woman was inseparable from her inner discipline. Health, too, was a constant concern. Victorian medicine emphasized regimen, hygiene, and preventative measures, though often framed through contemporary misconceptions. Cold water rubs, brisk walks in morning air, and careful attention to bowel movements were part of routine care. Remedies for ailments, herbal infusions, honey, vinegar, or poultices were prepared at home with diligence, applied with quiet reverence. Women learned to read their bodies carefully. Slight pallor, fatigue, or blemish could indicate imbalance, requiring immediate attention. Even the faintest headache was treated with a combination of rest, fragrant compresses, or gentle massage. Yet self-care was not purely physical. It was intimately tied to morality and identity. Maintaining the body was a reflection of virtue, of self-control, of an understanding of one's duties. Laziness, sloppiness, or overindulgence was seen as a moral failing, a visible sign of weakness or character flaw. The act of grooming was therefore a moral exercise as much as an aesthetic one, a daily affirmation that order, refinement, and propriety governed the life within as well as the life presented to the world. In these ways, the Victorian woman's morning and midday rituals unfolded like a carefully composed symphony. The routine was precise, each movement deliberate, each object soap, brush, comb, cream, ribbon imbued with significance. It was a world in which self-care was inseparable from societal expectation, where beauty was inseparable from discipline, and where the domestic sphere was both sanctuary and stage. As noon approached, women might step into sunlight with parasols raised, skirts adjusted, and gloves in place. The city streets or gardens became a theater of subtle grace, each gesture observed by peers, each posture assessed. And yet, beneath the careful exterior, beneath the layers of cloth and expectation, a private inner world persisted, a world of reflection, self-awareness, and quiet assertion, where the body was cared for not just as display, but as a vessel of endurance, health, and subtle power. For the afternoon sun slanted through tall windows, casting long, warm beams across the polished floors of Victorian homes. In the quiet privacy of drawing rooms and bedrooms, women attended to the subtler arts of physical and personal maintenance, those rituals that were often invisible to the casual observer, but deeply significant in shaping their daily lives. Every gesture was measured, every motion deliberate. Even the act of resting was regulated, for fatigue threatened both beauty and social reputation. In wealthier households, the presence of a lady's maid or an attendant allowed for more elaborate routines. The preparation of a scented bath, the mixing of creams and lotions, the careful arrangement of hairpins and ribbons all required time and patience. These women learned to anticipate needs, hot water ready at the proper temperature, bath oils prepared with herbs to soften the skin, towels warmed by the fire. Each element was a study in precision. The woman herself remained composed, as the real labor of beauty often unfolded behind a curtain of propriety. Meanwhile, in less affluent homes, the rituals were no less meticulous, though simplified by necessity. A bowl of warm water on a washstand, a bar of homemade soap, a soft cloth, and a hand-mixed cream of beeswax and oil were enough to sustain the standard. Even here, the rhythm of care remained. Washing the face and neck first, hands next, then arms and feet, each movement performed with deliberate patience. The tactile familiarity of these routines brought comfort, a sense of control in a world that often offered women little agency. Hair care was central to these routines. Women brushed until strands gleamed in lamplight, then massaged oils into the scalp to strengthen and protect. In some households, hair was washed weekly using mixtures of egg yolk, vinegar, or soda water, followed by careful drying and pinning. Even small towns saw inventive measures. Leaves of rosemary or lavender steeped in warm water, applied as gentle rinses to freshen the scalp and scent the hair. Each act, no matter how minor, was an affirmation that the body was worthy of attention, a private form of reverence for oneself. Perfumes and scented powders were applied sparingly, never to overwhelm, but to whisper a presence. A light trace of lavender behind the ears, rosewater on the wrists, a sachet of dried flowers in the folds of a dress. These subtle infusions became extensions of self, bridging the private interior life with the public persona. To misapply scent was to invite scrutiny. To master it was to assert discreet elegance. Nails and skin required equal vigilance, softened with oils and carefully cleaned. Fingers and toenails were shaped to perfection. The tips were slightly rounded, the cuticles smoothed, the skin polished with gentle creams. Calluses or rough patches were considered unsightly, signs of labor that belonged to the lower classes. Maintaining softness was not merely aesthetic. It was an assertion of identity and status, a declaration that the body was carefully curated, disciplined, and morally aligned with societal expectations. Corsetry was, of course, central to the day's regimen. Lacing and unlacing required skill and patience. Women learned to breathe through the tight embrace of whalebone and linen, to move with grace despite restriction. Some mornings, the tightening of the corset caused discomfort, a dull pressure that reminded them of the tension between social expectation and bodily autonomy. Yet, this discipline was not resented, it was internalized as necessity, a form of endurance and quiet virtue. Only the most rebellious dared challenge the constraints fully, and even then, with careful compromise. Exercise was subtle, though intentional. A walk in the garden, turning carefully at corners, sitting with proper posture on a chair, or rising gracefully to answer a door, all reinforced poise. Certain movements, like the raising of a hand to lift a teacup, were practiced repeatedly to ensure elegance and control. In the Victorian understanding, the body was an instrument of presentation, its appearance inseparable from moral and social value. Even gestures carried significance. A tilt of the chin, a lifted eyebrow, a measured step. Every motion communicated refinement. Diet reinforced these physical rituals. Meals were measured, portions controlled, and food chosen for its perceived effect on complexion and figure. Women avoided excessive sugar or rich sauces, favoring lighter fare porridge, lean meats, fruits, and simple bread. Tea was a central element, consumed at precise intervals to aid digestion and maintain composure. Hydration came mainly from water, with occasional milk or diluted wine. Tonic herbs, chamomile for calm, rose for skin, peppermint for digestion were common in the domestic pharmacopoeia. Every meal became a form of self-care, balancing health, elegance, and propriety. Even the smallest details were significant. A dropped pin might be retrieved with care, a ribbon retied, a fold of fabric adjusted. Mirrors offered not just reflection, but instruction. Women scrutinized their appearance constantly, assessing the alignment of hair, the smoothness of skin, the poise of hands. The mirror was both a teacher and a silent companion, a witness to the persistent labor of refinement that characterized daily life. In the social sphere, these rituals translated to careful interaction. A woman attending a parlor or garden party prepared herself meticulously, hair arranged, skin glowing subtly with cream, hands gloved yet supple, voice measured. Each gesture, each smile, each motion was evaluated by observers, consciously or unconsciously. The body became a language, a silent discourse in which every motion conveyed breeding, education, and refinement. Health and hygiene were inseparable from moral expectation. Cold water rubs, brisk air, carefully applied tonics, and herbal remedies formed a network of preventive care. Illness was not just physical, it was socially and morally significant. To appear frail without cause could provoke concern or judgment, while diligence in maintaining strength and composure was a mark of inner virtue. Even small ailments were addressed with meticulous attention. Herbal compresses for headaches, gentle massage for fatigue, aromatic baths to restore calm. Yet, amid the rigidity, private rebellion often flickered. Some women experimented with daily bathing, looser clothing, or unconventional remedies. Others questioned the endless constriction of corsets, seeking balance between discipline and comfort. These quiet acts of autonomy, though small, indicated a gradual shift of recognition that self-care could encompass both beauty and personal well-being, not merely compliance with societal expectation. As afternoon faded, the home settled into a rhythm of quiet reflection. The house smelled of fresh linens, herbs, and soaps. Shadows lengthened across floors and walls, offering a reprieve from scrutiny. In these moments, women allowed themselves subtle indulgences. A longer brush of hair, a small curl pinned for aesthetic pleasure, a touch of extra cream on the skin. These acts, seemingly minor, were vital assertions of agency, comfort, and personal attention. Even in the strictest households, care was both ritual and solace. The daily attentions to skin, hair, posture, and nutrition were inseparable from identity. Victorian women cultivated a disciplined elegance that masked the intensity of effort behind an appearance of effortlessness. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, a quiet satisfaction settled, a sense of accomplishment not for outward display alone, but for the private mastery of the self. Twilight descended softly, casting a dusky glow across the parlor and bedrooms of Victorian homes. The city outside hushed, street lamps flickered to life, and the faint murmur of distant conversations blended with the occasional clatter of carriage wheels. Inside, the women began their evening routines, quieter now than in the afternoon, more intimate, more attuned to the body's needs after a long day of composure and social performance. This was the hour when rituals became private, almost secret, performed for oneself rather than for society. The evening toilet began with washing, often in a small basin brought near the hearth or window. Water was heated carefully, mixed with herbal infusions. Lavender for calm, rosemary for circulation, rose petals for fragrance. Each woman moved deliberately, washing her face, hands, and neck with a soft cloth, taking care not to rub too vigorously. The skin, touched by the day's sun, wind, or artificial light from gas lamps, needed gentle tending. Cold cream was applied afterward, rubbed in with small upward strokes, massaging the face with the kind of patience that bordered on meditation. Hair care was central to this hour. Women unpinned their braids and buns, letting long locks cascade down their backs. They brushed methodically, often humming softly or pausing to watch the strands shimmer in lamplight. Oils were massaged into the scalp, mixtures of almond, castor, and rosemary, sometimes infused with small quantities of spirits, believed to strengthen hair growth and add shine. Hairpins were inspected, ribbons retied, and braids sometimes renewed for overnight protection. Even small towns observed these routines, though with simpler tools: a wooden comb, a soft cloth, a drop of oil. Perfumes and powders, though used sparingly during the day, found fuller expression at night. A light dab of rosewater behind the ears, a soft sprinkling of lavender powder on the neck or wrists, even a small sachet tucked into the folds of nightwear. These scents were intimate, personal, and restorative. They were not for display. They were whispers of comfort, subtle reminders of femininity, and quiet symbols of care. Skincare extended beyond the face. Hands and feet were washed, softened with oils, and gently massaged. Fingernails and toenails were cleaned and smoothed, cuticles attended to, calluses softened. Even under layers of nightwear, the body was nurtured. Some women prepare homemade lotions, blending beeswax with rosewater or almond oil, applying them with deliberate attention. These gestures were both practical and symbolic. They preserved youth, comforted the senses, and affirmed that the body, though constrained by societal expectation, deserved care and attention. The body's posture remained a focus even in privacy. Sitting at a dressing table or kneeling at the hearth, the back was kept straight, shoulders relaxed but controlled, hands poised. Movement was always measured. Even bending or reaching required deliberate grace. These small attentions, repeated night after night, trained the body to carry itself with elegance, even when no observer was present. For many women, this practice became meditative, a way of connecting the mind to the body, creating a sense of harmony between inner self and outward form. Evening meals, if consumed privately or as a late snack, adhered to the same principles of moderation. Tea, often served with a thin slice of bread or a small portion of fruit, was sipped slowly. The warmth soothing and restorative. Tonic herbs, such as chamomile, mint, or lemon balm, were consumed to aid digestion, encourage calm, and maintain vitality. Nutrition and self-care were intertwined. A measured intake supported not only health, but appearance, poise, and social readiness. Nightwear itself was chosen with attention. Soft cotton gowns, sometimes embroidered with subtle floral patterns, allowed the body to breathe while providing comfort. Layers of lace or ruffles were kept minimal to prevent constriction. Some women layered shawls or blankets if the room was chilly, preserving warmth without compromising posture. Even sleep was approached with discipline. The body arranged carefully on the bed, pillows supporting the neck and back, hair braided or coiled to prevent tangling. Rest was both necessary and structured, a final act of care after the day's labor of appearance. In the hush of night, letters and diaries often accompanied these rituals. Women recorded the minutiae of their care, the efficacy of a new cream, the fragrance of a recent soap, the sensation of hair brushed after bath. These writings were intimate, private, and sometimes reflective of aspiration or frustrations. They reveal a generation balancing external expectation with personal introspection, showing that self-care was both a social mandate and a private dialogue with oneself. Children, if present, were taught these practices gently, with patience and instruction. Mothers demonstrated careful brushing, cleansing, and application of creams, emphasizing discipline and patience. Girls learned that self-care was a sign of virtue, a pathway to grace, and a method of asserting subtle control over the self. Boys, though less involved in intricate grooming, were taught the basics of cleanliness and posture, understanding early the societal value placed upon appearance. Even the smallest details were observed with precision. A stray hairpin was corrected, a crease in fabric smoothed, a smudge of powder touched up. Mirrors became silent teachers, reflecting both effort and aspiration. The repeated attention to minor details reinforced the Victorian ideal. That refinement was the result of constant vigilance, and that beauty and discipline were inseparable. Some women, quietly defiant, experimented with variations of these routines. They might linger longer at the bath, apply extra oil to the hair, or use a slightly stronger herbal tonic. These deviations were subtle, almost imperceptible, but they offered personal agency within a highly structured world. They were moments of private indulgence, a small rebellion in the safety of one's own room. By the time the last candle flickered low, the house settled into silence. The faint scent of lavender, rosewater, and fresh linens lingered in the air. Shadows softened around furniture and walls. Women rested in their carefully ranged beds, bodies soothed by creams, hair bound in braids or coils, hands and feet cared for, posture maintained. The day's work complete, they found solace in the quiet mastery of their own bodies, a delicate balance between societal expectation and private fulfillment. In those moments before sleep, a Victorian woman's care became more than ritual. It was preservation, meditation, and quiet power. Every brush stroke, every massage, every measured gesture was an act of survival within the strict confines of her society. Her beauty, her poise, her discipline all intertwined with health, morality, and inner dignity. It was a practice that shaped identity, nurtured resilience, and preserved the fragile, quiet grace that defined her existence in a world of strict observation and subtle constraints. Night deepened, and the soft glow of candlelight became the sole illumination in the rooms of Victorian homes. Shadows danced across walls lined with wallpaper in muted florals, giving the air a delicate, dreamlike quality. Within this quiet intimacy, women engaged in rituals that were both practical and secretive, passed down from mother to daughter, whispered among friends, and meticulously recorded in diaries or personal letters. These were the hidden practices of care that went beyond mere cleanliness. touching the very heart of identity, health, and social survival. Many women maintained small, private collections of creams, powders, and tonics remedies for blemishes, fatigue, or discomfort. Some of these were made at home, carefully blended from beeswax, almond oil, rose water, or milk. Others were purchased discreetly from apothecaries, hidden behind drawers or within jewelry boxes, often labeled in coded handwriting to protect their privacy. A simple ointment might contain rose water and vinegar for brightening skin, or a mixture of oatmeal and honey for softening rough hands. Each formula was practiced with devotion, a combination of science, superstition, and artistry. Facial care was intricate. Women applied soft creams or tonics with upward strokes, massaging temples, cheeks, and jawlines in a precise rhythm. Vinegar and egg yolk mixtures were used to remove blemishes or brighten skin. Lavender water soothed irritation, while rose-infused oils were believed to preserve youthfulness. Mirrors, often small and handheld, allowed for meticulous inspection, ensuring no imperfection remained unnoticed. These rituals required patience. Even the slightest haste could disrupt the desired effect. Hair treatments were equally deliberate. Oils were massaged into the scalp to strengthen follicles, while herbal rinses rosemary, chamomile, or sage were used to cleanse, condition, and scent. Women sometimes left oils overnight, wrapping hair in linen or cotton to preserve moisture, returning to untangle and style in the morning. Pins and combs were examined carefully. Broken bristles or bent pins were repaired or replaced to maintain precision. The ritual of hair care was as much about mindfulness as beauty, a time for reflection and quiet meditation. Hands and nails demanded constant attention. They were washed in warm water, softened with oils, and sometimes gently scrubbed with oatmeal or sugar to remove dryness. Fingernails were filed into uniform shapes. Cuticles maintained with delicate care. Soft gloves, often linen, were worn afterward to protect the skin overnight, a subtle act of preservation. Feet, too, were cleansed, oiled, and massaged, especially in households where long walks or garden duties challenged the skin's softness. Even undergarments were cared for. With the same exacting precision, corsets were inspected for damage, cleaned, and starched as necessary. Chemises and petticoats were laundered with care, ensuring seams remained intact and fabric preserved. The act of preparing garments for the next day became an extension of self-care. Clean, well-maintained clothing reflected both discipline and social awareness. Dietary attention continued into the evening. Herbal teas, chamomile, peppermint, or lemon balm were consumed slowly, intended to calm the body and prepare it for rest. Snacks, if taken, were light. Bread, fruit, or small portions of cheese, chosen to maintain energy without disrupting digestion. Even these modest acts reflected an underlying belief in moderation, that bodily care and moral fortitude were intimately connected. For many, letters and diaries were an essential companion. Women recorded the efficacy of remedies, noted changes in confection, and reflected on their routines. Some documented the responses of the body to new tonics or soaps, while others noted private frustrations or joys. These writings were deeply personal, often hidden away, capturing the unseen labor of a generation of women whose lives were measured in small, deliberate gestures. Social expectations were omnipresent, even in private, the awareness of societal judgment lingered. To appear unkempt was not only unattractive, but morally suspect. A lady's diligence in self-care was a reflection of discipline, virtue, and propriety. Every smooth cheek, every polished fingernail, every well-brushed lock of hair reinforced identity and social standing. Neglect, however minor, could signify weakness, carelessness, or moral failing. Women internalized this vigilance, transforming their daily routines into a structured language of self-preservation and social commentary. Yet, beneath the strictures, private experimentation thrived. Some women tested new tonics, oils, or powders, refining their personal formulas. Others altered their routines slightly for comfort, experimenting with shorter baths, warmer water, or different oils. These deviations were subtle, rarely visible to anyone but themselves, but they offered a quiet assertion of autonomy, a private resistance within the broader framework of societal expectation. In moments of solitude, women allowed themselves small indulgences, a lingering brush of hair, a slightly richer cream. The quiet scent of a new soap all became acts of self-expression and comfort. These gestures were meditative, giving women a sense of control over their bodies and environments. Even as society dictated the framework, these small acts carved a private space where identity, well-being, and desire intersected. The night deepened further. Candles burned low, leaving rooms dim and shadowed. Mirrors reflected faint flickers of light across pale skin and carefully arranged hair. The scent of lavender, rose, and soap lingered, mingling with the subtle warmth of the evening air. Women rested, hands softened, nails polished, skin nourished, hair arranged, posture maintained, and minds quieted. Their rituals, repeated tirelessly day after day, were acts of devotion to self, discipline, and the silent endurance of expectation. In these quiet hours, the Victorian woman's care became almost sacred. Every touch, every preparation, every careful motion was a pledge to maintain dignity, to nurture health, to preserve beauty, and to uphold virtue. Behind the layers of fabric, beneath the enforced composure, there was agency, mindfulness, and an intimate understanding of the body as both vessel and instrument. The private rituals of the night encapsulated the very essence of a life lived within strictures, yet imbued with subtle autonomy and quiet resilience. Following evening, a heavy fog settled over the city, muting the distant sounds of carriages and merchants. Inside the dimly lit rooms of Victorian homes, the usual rituals of care unfolded with quiet precision. Yet something felt different, an undercurrent of tension, a subtle weariness threading through the day's practices. Women moved through their toilet with the same deliberate grace, washing, brushing, massaging oils into hair and skin, arranging ribbons and pins. But there was a noticeable hesitancy, a sense that the usual order was slipping at the edges. Baths were prepared with care, water infused with herbs, candles set to illuminate each gesture. Yet hands lingered a moment longer on the basin, brushes paused mid-stroke. Creams were applied with meticulous care, but the movements lacked their usual certainty. The day's exertions had weighed heavily, and for the first time, the rituals themselves seemed to falter under the silent pressure of expectation. Every action, once automatic, became consciously effortful. Hair, the crown of refinement, resisted perfection. Braids twisted unevenly, coils failed to hold their form. Oils left slight residue instead of a smooth sheen. Even the careful selection of perfumes and powders seemed meaningless, their faint fragrances lost in the dense, heavy air. The mirrors reflected not only faces, but fatigue, subtle lines, and shadows that could not be washed away or powdered over. Women glanced at their reflections with a fleeting awareness that no amount of care could entirely contain the weariness of body and mind. Hands and nails, once soft and carefully tended, showed the signs of exertion and small abrasions, the faintest traces of imperfection magnified in the candlelight. Every glove, every chemise, every petticoat felt heavier, as if the very fabric bore the weight of expectation. Even corsets, the instruments of control and posture, seemed to press more insistently against the body, reminders that discipline could not fully shield from fatigue or the creeping anxiety of endless ritual. Meals were taken lightly, yet appetite was faint, the teas and tonics failing to comfort fully. The usual balance between nourishment and ritual now felt strained, as if the body was quietly rebelling against the strict regimen that had governed it for decades. Herb mixtures, oils, and creams, so often the tools of meticulous care, offered only temporary relief, fleeting moments of reassurance that dissolved once the motions ended. Letters and diaries, once outlets of reflection, were left half-written, abandoned mid-sentence. Observations of complexion, hair, and minor improvements were overshadowed by a sense of unrest, a quietly mounting unease that these meticulous routines, though faithfully observed, could not fully govern the life they sought to shape. The rituals, so long the source of identity and pride, began to feel like chains, subtle yet unyielding, tying body and spirit to an unending cycle of expectation. In this scene, subtle rebellion flickered, but without resolution. Some women lingered in their bath longer, hoping for comfort. Yet, the stillness of the evening did not soothe. Hair was rebrushed, creams reapplied, gloves adjusted, yet perfection remained elusive. The air of discipline, once a source of calm, was now tense with the knowledge that fatigue and imperfection were unavoidable. As night deepened, shadows lengthened and flickered across walls and furniture. The city outside was muted, the fog dense and unyielding. Inside, women lay in carefully arranged beds, chemises soft, hair braided, hands resting on linen. Yet, the peace they sought remained just beyond reach. The meticulous rituals of the day, meant to preserve dignity, beauty, and moral order, could not entirely settle the mind or body. Weariness lingered in the bones, and even the quiet, private rituals failed to restore the equilibrium that had once seemed certain. The night ended quietly, unresolved. Mirrors reflected faces softened by candlelight but traced with fatigue. Oils, powders, creams, and gentle massages offered only temporary reprieve. The careful, disciplined gestures, brushes, baths, and the arrangement of garments were performed faithfully, yet the inner calm remained fragile, suspended in tension. Society's expectations had been met outwardly, yet inwardly, the body and spirit remained restless, uncertain, unsteady. And so the evening passed, the rituals completed, but without true resolution. The work of care, once a symbol of virtue and mastery, was performed with diligence, but underlined by an unspoken fragility. Perfection was approached, maintained, and observed, yet it never fully arrived. The cycle of expectation, discipline, and care continued, unfinished, leaving the women poised between grace and exhaustion, their inner unrest echoing softly in the stillness of the Victorian night.